All right, Lions fans, I'm here to drop another video. This is going to be this is going to actually this is going to be a take on 10 reasons why the Lions failed to reach the 2019 postseason. We're going to jump right into it. Number one, no run game. In other words, uh, it was too much of individualized agendas, or too many. In other words, as the offensive line never came together because each individual had their own separate agenda, maybe on the field, off the field type matter. So it was no room to even come together in one mindset. Number two, the team lacked um, chemistry and team goals. I don't believe there was no room as a team from offensive, defensive, as well as special teams. Even if you want to go from the top to the bottom, from the front office all the way down, there wasn't really much of a team chemistry or a team goal, an agenda overall for the whole organization. I think they are still trying to figure that out. And year three of Quinn and Patricia, I believe that they are more in position now to actually have an identity, team chemistry, and actually commit to the goal and even achieve it. All right. Number three, spotlight inexperience. This team didn't have any, with the exception of maybe possibly two. I want to say Amendola and Trey Flowers. I believe have reached the mountaintop like several times, and they've been in those different type situations that the line were in, particularly in the games like the Green Bay game or the Cardinals game or the Chiefs game. Those are games where the stakes are high, the spotlight is on. They got a chance to do something that they haven't done, which is to slay the giant or Goliath, and they blundered it. They blundered the opportunity, but I think they only had two players that actually been in those situations prior to coming to the Lions or being with the Lions, and they have not only got to the mountaintop, went over the mountaintop. All right, let's go to number four, immaturity. It was too much immaturity on the team. It was mainly it was this four and five on this list can tie together. Number five would be ego, and they would pretty much almost say one and one A. But the immaturity it was too much about the individual versus something was built and it was establishing something, and the aftermath will take care of itself. In other words, I understand it's a business, and people are playing for their livelihoods and their this is their profession. So how they make their living or make a living is going to be in most cases in the forefront. But you came to this sport based upon in competition. So competition was second. So that therefore the individual success or accomplishments came first, and that's what led to the immaturity and the egos. Number six, this team lacked leadership at key positions, i.e., secondary, linebacker core, D line, offensive line, special teams. If you look at the great teams that was dominant, either on the offense or the defense, they from offense from the O line all the way back to the whatever from the quarterback O line, they pretty much had leadership in both of those positions. Or if you look at the defense, they go from the defensive line to the middle of the field to the secondary. They had leaders in key positions. The Lions didn't have none of that nowhere. Now I'm going to say that even including with Matthew Stafford, which goes into um, number seven. Stafford had to be Bugs Bunny. What I mean by Bugs Bunny, remember? I don't know if you recall there was an episode of Bugs Bunny was on a baseball team and he had to play all like 9 positions or something like that, and he had to do everything for that team to be successful, and he actually did it, and they were successful. So, but Matthew Stafford had to be Bugs Bunny, but I mean, yet he wasn't ready or developed for that position. Uh, Matthew Stafford, like I will repeatedly say that, or like I repeatedly said, that he is the icing on the cake. He is the finish. He is the last piece to the puzzle. In other words, this team should be formed this year. And last past, let's say up, let's say for the last 3 years. I mean, this off season, make it the third. This team is being put into place for Stafford don't have to do anything. They finally are building a team around Stafford. And what I mean by that is, I thought building a team around a very like a quarterback or something, it would be like, okay, you get him this, get him that, get him that. No, you put all the pieces in place, and you just let the quarterback just basically do what he does. Matthew Stafford, I would say for the last past 2 years, let's say roughly 3 years, maybe 4 to 5, he have been grooming into this platform that he's going to face this year, where he don't have to do as much, not because they have better talent at skill positions and so forth, and is a better overall team. That's definitely a factor. Yet he is maturely as an individual, the game has slowed down so much. Off the field situations as well as on the field situations have slowed him down, as well as input from previous coaches and previous regime. He learned a lot, and the game is slowing down. And plus, at the same time, Matthew Stafford is not the same person that came to the league over 9 years ago. He came in very hot. Young. Willing to run through walls and everything else. He still have that mentality. Yet and still he's selective about how he's running to that wall. All right, so let's see, where are we? Let's go to number 8. This team lacked mental strength. In other words, a team could punch the Lions, the officials could punch the Lions, and they will fold. Distractions off the field can punch the Lions as players or as individuals, and they will fold. And that shows to the lack of mental strength. This is why I believe that Matt Patricia had them practice in the snow and running up hills and stuff like that. He's trying to see, or he was the attempt was to see who had the mental capacity to endure. In other words, even though he saw like it's going to take like 3 to 4 years to get this done, but at the same time, he need to see how his foundation is going to get established and who was going to be with him. You have the guys like the Jared Davises. He's going to be with him, and they'll fight for him. And even Devin Kennard. The Devin Kennards would have fought for him, but at the same time, I think the guy that they have to basically do what he was going to do on the field, they have that as well as that self same guy. Is probably a little bit didn't reach his ceiling, so they have more room to grow. And at the same time, I believe Devin Kennard was probably possibly it was a more like a disagreement. That he was in a better position to be on a playoff team than it is a team like this of sorts. But then again, I could be totally wrong. He could want to ride with Patricia, and Patricia just decided to go a different direction. Okay, let's see. Number 9. This team had no identity and no respectability, which basically are one of the same. If they have respectability, they have much of it will be based off an identity that they have. And this year they will have that. But as far as 2019, they didn't have no identity. So there was no reason for a team really to be threatened by the Lions. Not at all. You didn't know what you were going to get from Patricia, so you had the game plan according to that level of that impact or impactful level. But at the same time, it wasn't really no respect for the team. You may have to watch key players at certain points, but even with those key players, they were fulfilling the previous 7 reasons why you know they don't have really much of respect or an identity. And lastly, number 10, uh, was not ready from top to bottom, from an organizational standpoint, to reach that, to get over the mountaintop, or to get to that, to get to that, to the promised land, which would be the Super Bowl or so forth, and possibly even winning it. They wasn't in it as an organization. Just wasn't ready. The pieces wasn't in place. Not just players, coaches, scheme fit, foundation, um, uh, identity. Just everything was just, it was just so still scattered. And people say like, well, Patricia first year he did okay. The second year there was an expectation that he would do better because he had a year to prepare. But it takes longer than that to actually get all this foundation together. Now remember, Quinn and Patricia are coming from an organization that have done it repeatedly. Some players that they brought here came from organizations that have won, but they may not been around those establishments that have put the pieces together, had to go through the losing, whatever, to implement a system, a winning culture. So that's what this, as an organization, that's what number 10, this team wasn't ready for. It just wasn't ready from top to bottom. And so with that, we're going to go to, while we're here, let's go to 10 reasons why the Lions would be and will be equivalent to a Super Bowl NFC representative. In other words, I'm going to pencil them in as an NFC representative for the Super Bowl. That's just me. That's not me being biased or anything like that. It's based upon I see everything how it's coming together. How for the past, let's say 5 years, how it has been getting to this point where it's at now. Okay, let's see. Let's start with this. Number one, um, Jamie Collins. Why? Because he gives his team a defense identity. Okay. His impact on the field at his position that he can do at a high level is going to give the defense an identity. Where all the other players can feed off of him, off of his impact of versatility. It's like equivalent to saying if we would have went after Isaiah Simmons, which was a guy that I very much interested in of them drafting, but I also understand why they didn't get him. Let's say Jamie Collins is somewhat, you would say, Isaiah Simmons, yet with the experience of winning and being the experience of being in those crucial type situations, but also have a component that can complement the D line, that can complement the secondary. And what I mean by that, you have an anchor in the secondary, you have an anchor on the D line, and those he has a camaraderie type deal with versus Isaiah. Simmons is coming in very raw. Don't get me wrong, his talent is what it is. His talent is key, but you will need time for him to understand the game. Now, some guys can come in from college and hit the ground running and they become immediate whatever, but those are very rare. With a team that is ready, that's poised to, if you got a guy like in Jamie Collins that is ready to take you there, you take that and you take that pick that you would have used for Isaiah Simmons instead of getting talent. You go get something that's going to complement what you established for the past 2 years. All right, let's go with number two, Danny Shelton. He's a defensive line leader, and I'm going to book that. He is going to give you everything that the Lions fan expected Snacks to do in year two. In year one, he Snacks had a carrot in front of him, so he has something to play for. And even with that, he didn't want to be here, so he dodged the calls of Quinn, which is documented. So he didn't want to be here. So that Danny Shelton, by him wanting to be here, regardless if he came here for the money or whatever, he for Patricia or he got other players here that he won't have to do so much by himself. It's a place where he don't mind being because it's like you don't have to do everything. What makes it a drag? It's one thing to be good at it's one thing to be good at what you do. It's another thing that everybody leans on you and don't do anything to contribute towards what you do best. With here, Danny Shelton saw that he can do what he do at a very high level, as well as that he don't have to do it all by himself. So he's gonna establish a defensive line leadership, and the defensive line will have be a stamp off of his impact. All right, number three. My guy Harmon, Daron Harmon. He is a game closer. In other words, and those game situations that we were in, the Green Bay game, the Chiefs game, and the Cardinals game, or the Chiefs. I'm sorry, not the Cardinals. Even the Chiefs, and even the Cardinals game. You could say that throw those four in there. I believe his way that he approached the game and not afraid of the spotlight and so forth is going to be infectious. It's going to be contagious, and it's going to trickle down throughout the secondary. And that will actually, like I said, it's going to help establish the identity. And that goes back to uh, to Jamie Collins, how they both are they complement each other. All right, number four, Okuda. He brings forth like this passionate determination of this like this innocence. It's a hunger. Now there's a gripe or there's a split of fans of saying like they shouldn't have drafted him at three. They could have traded back and they could have did something else. They could have got him later on. If that's your guy, you take him. And the reason why I believe that they took him because he complements Harmon and he complements Jamie Collins. He complements those guys as well as Danny Shelton and Trey Flowers on the offensive or defensive line. He complement them. And people say that's still too high. If this guy doesn't have to do, oh, let me point this out. There was a year with the 49ers when they was going for the Super Bowl run, and I want to say 94, 95, and they had to play against Dallas Cowboys for the third straight year in the NFC title game, and to go see who's going to go to the Super Bowl. And the game plan was to. This is when the 49ers had just brought in Deion Sanders for that year, and they brought him in there to be actually to get them over the top to beat the Cowboys. For the last past 2 years, the Cowboys had the 49ers number. All right, so the one thing they did with Deion Sanders in this title game, you would think they would put Deion Sanders on Michael Irvin, but they didn't. They put him on Alvin Harper. Why? Because Alvin Harper was a deep threat. He was the guy that was taking off, taking the going over the top, and he was killing with the long ball. So what they did, Eric Davis wasn't a Pro Bowler that year, but the following year he was. So he was improving. Merton Hanks, Tim McDonald, that secondary, the DBs and the safeties, they was predominantly a good secondary that year. They had brought in a lot of players, free agency, whatever. So the game plan was to get Eric Davis and to zone on Michael Irvin. If Michael Irvin beats you over the middle, you got your linebackers to go ahead and stop that. But they won't. The guy that was going to worry, guy that was worried about taking you over the top was Alvin Harper. So I say that to say, if Deion Sanders was their best cover guy, they didn't put him on their best receiver. They put him on the guy who they basically need to shut down. They would say everybody else on the secondary will shut down Michael Irvin, and the linebackers would take care of the the tight end, etc. So this is what I see the Lions doing with Jeff Okuda. They not. I don't. People say, well, since he's the number three pick, he's going to be on the number one receiver. He don't necessarily have to be. You take that top. So like if he come in and he come out establishing himself, of course they're gonna target him because he's a rookie, and it's not like he's holding his own. So you don't have to put him on the best receiver. Put him on the number two. But if you got him on the number two, if he can lock down the number two receiver, I mean, just lock down the number two receiver. That means everybody else in the secondary which I believe they're going to run a lot of nickel and dime sets. So they're going to run. I believe they're going to run a lot of two linebacker sets, and maybe they put a lot of DBs in the backfield. And so what you do with that secondary, you just zone it on the best receiver. Either you playing it deep or you playing it, you helping out the linebackers to cover the middle. So all right, okay, let's go with um, Hadapaluli Vati. Halapaludi Vati. Let's go with him as the attitude of the O line. There's one thing that the Lions O line have never had, and I'm going to say that never in my history of knowing the Lions. It goes back to with Lomas Brown and Kevin Glover, and they were Pro Bowlers, but they never had an identity. They never had an attitude. If you look at the Cowboys of from the '90s, from Jimmy Johnson all the way up to now, Jerry Jones had took that blueprint from Jimmy Johnson to establish an identity with the O line. That's why they for the Emmitt Smith era as well as the I can't think of the running back now that they have. Not Dak Prescott, he's the quarterback, but whoever's running the ball, they pretty much have an offensive line, but they establish an identity, and that's one thing that uh, Vitae is going to is established. His mindset is hit you first. If you look at the guys that they brought in guys. I mean, for the offensive line, they brought in guys to hit you first, and it started off with Frank Ragnow, Glasgow, whoever, or Wiggins and Obushi and the rest of them, Decker, even Wagner. They wasn't a hit you first. They was like more so reactions type O lineman. But even Bo Benswell, um, Steinberg, Joshua Jackson, Vitae, Ragnar. They are our guys that they're going to hit you first, and they're gonna bring this nastiness to you. They're gonna hit you first, and like I said, the Lions have never had that kind of intimidation on that offensive line. Well, speaking of intimidation, let's go to number. Well, not no, intimidation. Speaking of O line, let's go to number 6. Number 6 would be um, DeAndre Swift. I'm going to say this on the record. DeAndre Swift is going to be the best offensive weapon on the Lions team. He's going to be the best offensive weapon. He is a guy that could do everything. And I heard somebody say that he doesn't block. He does block. He is the best guy. I look at his dad. His dad at the age he is, and he got the video of him working out and everything, and that's inside Swift. That prove you wrong type deal. I still not that I still got it, but I'm going to be the very best at it. And everything that he does it well. So if somebody says that he can block, he's going to be a blocker, and he's going to do it well. He checks off all of the boxes. He is the guy that's going to be the best offensive weapons. There's not one thing he will lack to his game this year, and this is why I'm banking on the offense to ride off of him. I don't. The team can't ride off of receivers. They tried to do that with Calvin Johnson, and they don't go so far because you can't throw the ball all the time. As we Lions fans, as you know, you need to control the possession of the clock, or you need to control the timestamp. You need to control it. And the Lions have never really been able to do that. They've been pretty much three and out, or they jump down and they score. But when it's times to control the clock or to run the clock out, it's not being done. So number 7, Reggie Ragland. I'm going to say this because if they brought him here, they brought him here for one reason: check his highlights, whatever, or check his reputation. And I'm going to say he's in a intimidation factor. This Lions team, I have never, let me say, with the exception of maybe Sue, that from the defense perspective, you were intimidated by, you know, and even with that, that I don't know if they really was intimidated by him. Like let's say for the sake of like a guy like Aaron Donald, or Khalil Mack, or Von Miller, or somebody of that caliber, you are intimidated by them because they just it's like they are men among boys. Like Lawrence Taylor, you're Ronnie Lott. You just they come with this fierce. It's not a competitiveness. It's just it's like their approach, their mentality. It just it's just like a man among boys. So Reggie Ragland brings that to this team, regardless how if he plays limited or he plays key roles or whatever, he's going to bring that factor into the locker room, and that's going to be a help to contribute towards the identity of the team. All right, number 8, Trey Flowers. Trey Flowers is the defensive line attitude. Look how he handled himself once again. I'll repeat this. Look how he handled himself in the Green Bay game. After he received the 2 bad calls, even when he received the first one, he adjusted, and he still got the same call. Look how he handled it. That's sure defensive line attitude, and that's going to help. That's going to influence or complement what Jamie Collins brings. Jamie Collins is a guy I'm going to hit you first in the mouth, but at the same time, Trey Flowers is the balance of that. In other words, if you got somebody that's in the forefront, like point the guy out, let's go handle him. You got to have the guy who has his back. If the guy goes, even if the guy's a rebel and he goes out there by himself in this fight, he's still, if he's smart, he's going to have somebody to have his back. His 1-2 punch. All right, and that's Trey Flowers. All right, number 9, Ragnow. We talked about him briefly, and how him and Vitae is going to establish this offensive line with their from their leadership and from their attitude. Their hit you in the face first, hit you first. And my last number 10, the last piece I would say will be Joshua Garnett. I believe that's his name, Joshua Garnett. And the reason why I say this, he's a offensive lineman. He was a cast off. I think I don't know where he came from. I don't know if he came from 49ers or whatever. I say this because I see him as the fullback. If wouldn't it be something if you had an old lineman as your fullback? Because old linemen, that's what they do. They block, right? They run block, they pass block. So they pretty much know the offense from that perspective. Imagine if they can just make a hole. You got a 300-pounder making a hole or helping out the O line. So not only do you have an O line that's hitting you first, you also got your tight ends that's a dual threat. They could hit you first to establish the run game as well as it'll be a vertical threat, you know. But if you have this fullback that is actually an old lineman that could do multiple things, they're not. He's gonna catch out. He's gonna do. The Lions are gonna do a lot of trickery stuff because they're gonna have. They're in position to do it. This is the reason why I say that this team is going to represent the NFC going to the Super Bowl. It's because in fact they are out of all the NFC teams, this team I see them being more polished than any other team in terms of creativity. This league is based upon whoever does it, you copy it, right? So, and once whoever does it and they do it well, it becomes like a stamp of what everybody. I mean, not everybody, but a lot of teams try to emulate, or it becomes the template how to defend, or what to defend. If everybody's trying to do what the Kansas City Chiefs did with speed and so forth. So now you got to counter that. So if you're not inventive or creative, you're going to be last in line. That's why I believe the Lions will always last because they was never innovative. They was always duplicates or replicates of what somebody has already done. But this time with Underling, well, let's say this with Patricia at the helm, with Patricia